At our daughter's 3-month milestone party, my husband Garrett, so-called best friend, publicly humiliated me. Hey, Vivian. I heard you're a little loose down there after popping out the kid. If it's that bad, you better get some tightening surgery quick. Don't want to mess up your marriage vibes. Garrett shot her a playful glare and snapped, "Knock it off, Scarlett. You can't just say whatever pops into your head." Then he turned to me with a breezy shrug.
She's just like that. Total tomboy.
We grew up together. She means no harm. Scarlett shook her half-exposed breast and pouted. Oh, come on. Don't take it personally, Vivian. Honestly, I'm kind of jealous of you. See, my problem is the opposite. I'm way too tight. Hurts like hell during my period. No clue who's gonna get lucky with this later. Then she cut her eyes toward Garrett with a playful wink.
All right.
You've tried it before, haven't you? The room went dead silent. Every pair of eyes drifted toward me, barely concealing their curiosity. I smiled, set down my wine glass, and looked at Scarlett with fake concern. That's strange. I don't remember making it that tight when I did your surgery. In the stunned silence, someone finally burst out laughing.
Damn.
Vivian's got bite. First person I've ever seen shut Scarlett up. Others jumped in, cracking jokes to ease the tension. Garrett seized the moment, sliding an arm around me and murmuring in my ear. Scarlett was just looking out for us. You know how she is. No filter. Why do you have to go at her like that? Then he turned to Scarlett, his voice dripping with indulgent warmth. See what happens when you run your mouth, Vivian? Shut you right down. Now go apologize. Scarlett swallowed whatever was boiling behind her expression and raised her glass toward me. All right. You got me. Vivian, that mouth of yours is something else. Look, I basically grew up with these guys. We've known each other since we were kids. They talk about anything and everything in front of me. I just got carried away. No hard feelings, okay? One of Garrett's friends rushed to smooth things over.
Exactly.
Vivian, you're a miracle surgeon. Don't stoop to this tomboy's level. She's basically one of the guys with a push-up bra.
Huh.
The table erupted again. Scarlett played along, thrusting out her chest.
Oh.
Come on, with a body like this. You guys have been plenty lucky. She turned to me. Vivian, isn't my figure the best you've ever worked on? Garrett gave her a quiet, "That's enough." I looked at her sculpted curves, every contour the product of my own hands, and the corner of my mouth twitched.
Of course it was the best.
I made it. I spoke up again, this time letting my professional tone carry across the room. Scarlett, if you're really experiencing the kind of tightness you described, it could be post-surgical hypertrophic scarring. Perhaps you had a second procedure done elsewhere. Either way, it can cause significant pain and even affect fertility. I'd strongly recommend a follow-up exam. I made sure my voice was loud enough that people at the next table turned to look. Garrett shot to his feet. Vivian, outside.
Now.
The wooden door sealed off the noise from the dining hall. The corridor was much quieter. Garrett yanked at his tie in frustration. What is wrong with you? Accusing her of having surgery in front of all those people. You just humiliated her in front of everyone. I rubbed my reddened wrist where he'd gripped it. She's the one who brought up your private life at our daughter's celebration. And she's the one with no shame. A flash of guilt crossed his face. I knew it.
This is about last night.
We were drinking, playing truth or dare. We're both doctors. We talk about bodies all the time. It's not like that, I scoffed. Garrett, you're disgusting. His eyes went cold, his jaw tight. Do you have to be so nasty about it? Scarlett's right. You've gotten so difficult since the baby. This is exactly what she was talking about. The words cut deep. I was about to fire back when a shrill, piercing cry erupted from the dining hall. I shoved past Garrett and ran. What I saw when I burst through the doors made my blood boil. Scarlett had Sophie cradled in one arm, a glass of whiskey in the other, tilting the rim toward the baby's tiny mouth. Come on, sweetie. Have a taste of the good stuff. Gotta start them young. Barrett's buddies were cheering and hollering around them, egging her on. The amber liquid sloshed over the rim and dripped into my daughter's crying mouth. The burn hit instantly. Sophie's wail turned into a terrified, ragged shriek, her little limbs thrashing inside the swaddle. Scarlett just laughed, clamping the baby tighter with her arm, as her wrist tipped the glass further down. What are you doing? I slapped her hand away with everything I had. The glass flew from her grip and shattered on the. I snatched Sophie into my arms. She was choking and gagging against my chest.
Show, baby.
Mommy's here. I patted her back gently. My fingers came away damp and cold. Scarlett had squeezed her so hard the diaper had burst. Garrett walked in right behind me, just in time to see me wrench the baby from Scarlett's arms, sending her stumbling backward onto the floor. His first instinct was to rush to Scarlett. He grabbed her arm, pulling her up while shouting at me. Vivian, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you attacking Scarlett? He didn't even glance at our daughter, who was crying so hard she could barely breathe. I held Sophie tight, my eyes like ice. Garrett, why don't you ask her what she was doing? Feeding hard liquor to a 3-month-old baby. You could have killed her. Garrett froze. His gaze swept over the puddle of whiskey on the floor, and his expression stiffened for a moment. But Scarlett was already rubbing her arm, her face a picture of wounded innocence. Vivian, come on. My grandpa used to put whiskey on our gums when we were teething. It's not a big deal. Toughens them up. I was just giving my little niece some grit. I was shaking with rage. I pulled out my phone. Hello, 911? I need to report smack. The phone was ripped from my hand and flung to the floor. Garrett was breathing hard, his chest heaving. You're really gonna call the cops over this? On a day like today? You wanna ruin it for everyone? Okay, she shouldn't have done it that way. But she wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Do you really have to blow everything out of proportion? I stared at him like I was looking at a stranger.
Garrett.
My voice sounded hollow. Even to me. You went to medical school. You know exactly what alcohol does to an infant. This is your daughter. What's going on here? Garrett's parents elbowed through the gawking crowd, their faces thunderous. A perfectly good celebration. And you're causing a scene. Embarrassing. I pointed at the shattered glass on the floor. Scarlett fed Sophie hard liquor. I'm calling the police. Liquor. Garrett's father Donald paused, then let out a dismissive snort. That's what this is about when Garrett was a baby. His grandfather used to dip his finger in bourbon and let him lick it. Never hurt him one bit. Garrett's mother, Patricia, jabbed a finger in my face. She's fine. What's the big deal? A little whiskey isn't going to kill her. Scarlett is a good girl. We've known her whole life. Don't you dare blame her. I looked at Garrett's silence, at his parents twisting everything inside out, at Scarlett standing off to the side, shooting me a smug little smile. I felt nothing but utter disgust. I took a deep breath, turned, and walked toward the door. Garrett called after me. Where are you going? The hospital. I didn't look back. If anything is wrong with her. Scarlett, I swear to God. This isn't over. Thank God. Sophie had barely ingested any whiskey. Most of it was vomited up as she cried. But she was still rattled, fussy and limp from the shock. Ethan put down his stethoscope and exhaled. What happened? Isn't today supposed to be Sophie's party? When I didn't answer, he let it go. Instead, he took a small pink box from his desk and handed it to me. I've got a major surgery today.
Make it to the party. His voice was warm.
This is a gift for Sophie. When I stayed in the observation room with my baby, Garrett texted, how's the kid? Mom and Dad say stop overreacting. Running to the ER over nothing. I didn't reply. I turned off my phone. At 1 a.m, I carried Sophie through the front door of her house. Standing in the middle of my living room was Scarlett, wearing my favorite silk robe. She spotted me and let out a theatrical little, oh, you're back. I didn't bring any clothes, so Garrett told me to borrow something of yours. You don't mind, do you? Where's Garrett?
I pretended not to see the rope strap.
She deliberately let slip off her shoulder. Scarlett pouted, then picked up my face towel and casually used it to wipe her feet, moving around the place like she owned it. He's in the study on the phone with his dad. You look tired, Vivian. Give me the baby. I can help you take care of her from now on. I stepped aside, avoiding her outstretched hand. That won't be necessary. Garrett came out of the study, just in time to see me pull away from her. His expression darkened. What did the doctor say? I laid Sophie on the couch and checked her tiny hands and feet.
She's stressed.
Some kind of acute stress response. They said to keep an eye on her. Garrett visibly relaxed.
See? I told you she'd be fine.
You had to go make a whole production out of it. I ignored him. I looked around the room. Where's Mrs. Bennett? She is the professional nanny I hired to look after Sophie. Garrett hesitated. I let her. Scarlett loves kids. I figured she could help out around here. Someone we know, instead of paying a stranger. Scarlett tightened the robe around herself and slinked over.
Hips swaying.
Don't worry, Vivian. I'm great with kids. Always have been. You two just focus on work and leave everything to me. Seeing my stony expression, she let out a little laugh. Oh, right. Today was my fault. Let me make it up to you. She grabbed the half-empty bottle of red wine off the coffee table and made as if to down it in one go. Garrett snatched it away.
Come.
Can you even handle that? His tone was annoyed, but the tenderness on his face was unmistakable. Watching their little act, I picked up my daughter and headed for the door. It took Garrett a moment to react before he stepped in front of me. Where are you going in the middle of the night? Can you stop being so dramatic?
Dramatic?
I laughed. Your buddy is wearing my nightgown, using my towel, and about to get drunk before watching my daughter. Garrett, who exactly is being dramatic here? Scarlett flipped her hair.
Wow.
Jealous much? I was just being practical, Garrett. Your wife clearly can't stand me. Maybe I should just go. Enough. Garrett raked his fingers through his hair. Vivian, she's already been called out.
She said.
Sorry, can we just drop it? He glanced at the baby in my arms. His voice softening. Don't put Sophie through this. I said nothing. Sophie did still have a low-grade fever. The night air was cold. I couldn't do that to her. I want to see Mrs. Bennett here tomorrow morning.
Fine. Fine.
You got it. I took Sophie to the guest room. Mrs. Bennett's baby supplies were still scattered around. Garrett and Scarlett stayed up in the living room, talking and laughing until well past midnight. Even when Sophie woke up crying, he never once came to check. At dawn, I dragged myself out of bed for the 4th time to take Sophie's temperature. That's when I heard giggling coming from the master bedroom. Oh, man, look how dumb you looked back then. They were huddled together, heads touching, a lipstick in hand, drawing all over something. That something was the pregnancy scrapbook I'd made by hand. Garrett had once pointed to the first page, whispering in my ear, when the baby grows up, we'll tell her the love story of mommy and daddy. Now, on that same page, my face in our wedding photo had been smeared with red lipstick. Someone had drawn 2 big X's over my eyes. And on Sophie's first ultrasound picture, scrolled in red, waste of space. What are you two doing? Scarlett jumped. The lipstick dragged a jagged red line across the photo. Oh, you're up. I thought the scrapbook was cute, so I got creative. She saw my face and shrugged.
Sorry.
Here, let me wipe it off. She rubbed at it with her palm, smearing the page into a mess of bright crimson. Give it back. I reached for it. She jerked away, and the sharp edge of the paper sliced a thin cut across her cheek. Vivian, what the hell? Garrett lunged forward and shoved me hard. I stumbled backward. My back slammed into the vanity. The mirror shattered, glass raining down around me.
He didn't look at me.
He bent over Scarlett, cradling her, his voice tight with worry. Scarlett, are you okay? Scarlett touched her cheek and winced. Damn, Vivian, you've got some grip. Garrett scooped her up in his arms. She squealed, then nestled her face into the curve of his neck. I'm taking Scarlett to the hospital. Vivian, you went way too far this time. After he left, I finally felt the wetness in my palm. I looked down. A long, deep gash ran across my hand between thumb and forefinger, the flesh gaping open. Blood ran freely. I felt nothing, just a dull, hollow ache. I called Mrs. Bennett and told her I needed to go to the hospital, asking her to please get there within 5 minutes. When Ethan saw me standing in his office doorway, blood dripping from my hand, his face went white. When he got a closer look at the wound, deep enough to show bone, his expression turned grim. The needle pulled through torn flesh. He cleaned and stitched in silence. Only after my hand was carefully wrapped in gauze did he speak, anger simmering beneath every word. This cut is deep. Do you have any idea? Your hands are everything. You're a surgeon. Where's Garrett? How could he let you come here alone? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the metal tray beside me. Ethan glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. He picked it up and held it so I could see. It was a post from Garrett's Instagram, freshly uploaded. A photo of Scarlett sitting on a hospital bed, a tiny, cartoonish butterfly bandage placed over a microscopic scratch on her cheek. Garrett's hand was in the frame, gently holding hers. The caption read, "Late night ER run. My tough girl took a hit, but she's still smiling. Some people just don't know how to control their temper." Below it, a flood of comments from his buddies. Damn, Viv is crazy. You okay, Scar? Watch out for the psycho wife. I stared at the screen. The throbbing in my hand faded into something else. Something cold, sharp, and absolute. The anger that had been boiling inside me evaporated, leaving behind a frozen, crystalline clarity. Ethan, I said, my voice eerily calm. I need you to do exactly as I say. He looked at me, the needle still poised above my skin. Vivian, you need a specialist. If this heals wrong, your career. My career will be fine. I cut him off, meeting his eyes. But right now, I need you to document everything. Take photos of the wound. The depth, the blood loss, the angle of the laceration. Write down that it was the result of a domestic assault. And then, I need you to pull the ER triage logs for tonight. Ethan frowned, catching my drift. To prove they were here for paper cut while you were bleeding out? To prove that my husband pushed me into a glass vanity, leaving me with a potentially career-ending injury, and then abandoned me to take his mistress to get a Band-Aid. Ethan didn't say another word. He set down the needle, pulled out his phone, and started taking pictures under the harsh surgical lights. I didn't go back to the house that night. Ethan let me sleep in the on-call room, and Mrs. Bennett, bless her heart, had taken Sophie to her own home the moment I texted her what happened. The next 3 days were a blur of calculated moves. I took a formal medical leave of absence from the hospital. I hired the most ruthless, bloodthirsty divorce attorney in the city, a woman named Laura Reyes, who looked at my case files with the hungry eyes of a shark-smelling chum. When I finally returned to the house, my right hand was encased in a sleek, black fiberglass splint. The house was a mess. Empty wine bottles cluttered the kitchen island. A pair of lace panties, definitely not mine, was draped over the back of the sofa. Vivian, Garrett's voice echoed from the stairs. He trotted down, wearing sweatpants, looking annoyed rather than guilty. Where the hell have you been? You completely ghosted me. My parents have been calling, asking why you weren't answering. He stopped when he saw the black splint. His eyes darted away, a flicker of genuine panic crossing his face before he masked it with defensive irritation. Is that really necessary? You're such an actress. It was just a mirror, Viv. You didn't have to disappear for 3 days. I was at my sister's. I lied smoothly, my voice flat. I needed space. Well, you could have texted, he grumbled, walking into the kitchen to grab a water bottle. Scarlett's been a wreck, by the way. She feels terrible about the scrapbook. She was just playing around. You know how she is. You didn't have to attack her. You're right, I said. Garrett froze, the water bottle halfway to his mouth. He turned to look at me, blinking in confusion.
What?
You're right, I repeated, walking toward the stairs. I overreacted. It's just the postpartum hormones. I haven't been myself. I'm sorry. The silence in the room was deafening. Garrett didn't know what to do with a compliant, apologizing Vivian. He thrived on my pushback. It gave him the excuse to call me crazy, to run to Scarlett for comfort. By removing the resistance, I effectively cut his strings. Oh, he exhaled, his shoulders dropping. A smug, satisfied smile crept onto his face.
Well,
it takes a big person to admit that, Viv. I'm glad you're finally seeing reason. Look, I'll tell Scarlett you apologized. We can all just move past this. Let's, I murmured, and walked upstairs to pack a small bag. Over the next 4 weeks, I played the part of the subdued, exhausted mother. I let Garrett believe he had won. I let him think my spirit was broken. What he didn't know was that on day 4, while he was at work and Scarlett was running errands, a private security firm came to the house. They installed military-grade, pinhole cameras in the living room, the kitchen, the study, and the master bedroom. They were motion-activated and synced directly to a secure cloud server that only I had access to. I spent my days at physical therapy, gritting my teeth through the agonizing pain of rebuilding the strength in my hand. And I spent my nights lying in the guest room, watching the live feeds on my iPad. It was worse and better than I could have imagined. I watched Garrett and Scarlett christen my kitchen counters. I watched them in my bed, rolling around on the sheets I had bought for our anniversary. But infidelity was common. It wasn't enough to ruin them. I needed to destroy them. The cameras gave me gold. File 042, Scarlett drinking straight from a vodka bottle while holding Sophie in a careless, one-armed grip. When Sophie started crying, Scarlett dumped her in the playpen, turned off the baby monitor, and walked into the backyard to smoke. File 089, Garrett in his study, opening his laptop. The high-res camera above the bookshelf caught his screen perfectly. He was transferring thousands of dollars from our joint savings account into a shell LLC. Laura, my lawyer, tracked the LLC. It was registered to Scarlett's brother. Garrett was paying off Scarlett's massive credit card debts and funding her lifestyle with my surgical earnings. File 114, the crowning jewel. Scarlett and Garrett lounging in the living room, laughing. Your parents are so annoying, Scarlett groaned, filing her nails. Your mom keeps asking when we're going to tell Vivian. Like, shut up, Patricia. I can't stand that old bat's voice. Garrett chuckled. Just play nice, babe. Once I get the chief resin spot, I'll have enough leverage to dump Viv and keep the house. We just have to endure my parents and her for a few more months. They knew. His parents knew. The entire time they were calling me dramatic, they were actively covering for their son's affair. I smiled at the iPad screen in the dark. It wasn't a nice smile. Are you sure you want to do this? Ethan asked. We were sitting in his office at the hospital. It had been 6 weeks since the incident. My hand was out of the splint. The scar was an ugly, jagged line of silver across my flesh, but the tendon had healed beautifully. I had full mobility. I was ready to return to the OR. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said, slipping a pair of surgical gloves on and off, testing the flex. Garrett's promotion dinner is tonight, Ethan noted, leaning back in his chair. He's been parading around the hospital all week, acting like the chief position is already his. He needs the board's approval, I replied. And the board loves me. He needs me there tonight to play the adoring, successful wife. It's the final piece of his little puzzle. Ethan's eyes gleamed with a dark, predatory amusement. Do you need backup? No. I stood up, smoothing the front of my dress. I just need you to make sure the hospital's legal team is on standby. The dinner was held in the private dining room of a high-end steakhouse downtown. The hospital's chief of surgery, the hospital board members, and a few senior partners were in attendance. Garrett's parents, Donald and Patricia, were there too, beaming with pride at their golden boy. And, of course, Scarlett was there. Garrett had tried to justify it by saying she was his oldest friend and deserved to celebrate his big night. She was wearing a plunging red dress that left absolutely nothing to the imagination, laughing loudly at jokes the senior doctors made, practically draping herself over Garrett's chair. I sat quietly beside Garrett, wearing a high-necked, elegant emerald gown. My scarred hand was resting calmly in my lap. I was the picture of grace, the perfect, supportive wife. Vivian, my dear, Dr. Eris, the chief of surgery, smiled at me from across the table. We've missed you in the OR. How is the hand? Healing perfectly, Dr. Eris, I smiled back. I'll be returning to my surgical rotation next Monday. Garrett blinked, turning to me. Wait, really?
You didn't tell me.
I wanted it to be a surprise, I said smoothly. I picked up my wine glass with my right hand, demonstrating my flawless grip. After all, tonight is all about surprises. Garrett beamed, puffing out his chest. That's fantastic, babe.
See?
I told you she was resilient. He turned back to the table. Vivian is the strongest woman I know. Behind every successful man, right? Oh, definitely, Scarlett chimed in, swirling her martini. Garrett works so hard. He deserves this promotion more than anyone. I've practically watched him exhaust himself these past few months. She shot a covert, filthy wink at Garrett, which I caught. Patricia, Garrett's mother, patted Scarlett's hand across the table. You've been such a rock for him, Scarlett dear. We're so grateful for your friendship. I let the nauseating display continue through the appetizers and the main course. I waited until the plates were cleared, until the expensive champagne was poured, and Dr. Eris tapped his glass with a spoon. I think it's time for a toast, Dr. Eris announced, standing up. To Garrett, a fine doctor, a dedicated family man, and, pending the board's final review tomorrow, our new chief resident. The table erupted into polite applause. Garrett stood up, his face flushed with triumph. He looked around the room like a king surveying his court. Thank you, Dr. Eris, Garrett said humbly. I couldn't have done it without the support of my mentors, my wonderful parents, and of course, my beautiful wife, Vivian, who has held down the fort at home. More applause. Garrett looked down at me, extending a hand. Viv, why don't you say a few words? I would love to, I said. I stood up. I didn't take his hand. I reached into my designer clutch and pulled out a thick, white envelope. I dropped it on the table in front of Garrett. It landed with a heavy, satisfying thud. Garrett looked at it, confused. What's this? It's a summons, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet room. For divorce. And a restraining order. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Dr. Eris froze, his champagne glass halfway to his mouth. Patricia let out a strangled gasp. Garrett let out a nervous, awkward laugh. Vivian, what kind of joke is this? You've had too much wine. I haven't had a drop, I said, my tone ice cold. I reached into my bag again and pulled out several sleek, black flash drives. I began walking around the table, casually tossing one in front of Dr. Eris, one in front of the hospital's HR director, and one in front of Donald and Patricia. What the hell are you doing? Garrett hissed, his face draining of color. He lunged for the envelope, tearing it open. His eyes skimmed the legal jargon, widening in sheer terror. I'm sharing the wealth, I announced to the room. Since my husband loves to share so much. On those drives, Dr. Eris, you will find meticulous financial records proving that Garrett has been embezzling money from the hospital's discretionary fund, routing it through our joint accounts, and depositing it into a shell company owned by his mistress's brother. Mistress? Dr. Eris repeated, his face turning hard. Vivian, shut up. Garrett roared, stepping toward me. Before he could close the distance, two massive men in dark suits stepped out from the shadows of the restaurant's alcove. The private security I had hired. They smoothly intercepted Garrett, placing firm hands on his chest and forcing him back into his chair. Don't touch me, Garrett panicked, thrashing against them. Scarlett jumped up, her face twisted in ugly fury. You crazy bitch. You're making this up because you're jealous. You're a cold, frigid workaholic, and Garrett finally found a real woman. I turned to Scarlett. I looked her up and down, from her fake lashes to the curves I had literally built for her. Scarlett, I said calmly. File 114 on those drives is an audio recording of you calling Patricia and Donald cheap old bats and complaining about how Garrett's mother smells like mothballs and desperation. Patricia shrieked. What? She whipped her head to glare at Scarlett, her face purple with rage. You little tramp. Is that true?
No.
Mrs. Bennet, Scarlett stammered, backing away. File 042. I continued, raising my voice to drown out the chaos, locking eyes with Garrett. Is high-definition video of your real woman leaving our 3-month-old daughter alone in a room with the monitor off so she could go smoke right after feeding her straight vodka. Which is why the police are waiting outside this restaurant right now to arrest her for child endangerment. Scarlett's face went paper white. You recorded me? I'm a surgeon, Scarlett. I smiled, a slow, predatory baring of teeth. When I find a tumor, I don't just put a band-aid on it. I map it. I isolate it. And then I cut it out. I turned back to the board members, who were sitting in stunned, horrified silence. Dr. Eris, HR. I nodded respectfully to them. Garrett's actions violate the moral turpitude clause of his contract, let alone the felony embezzlement. I have already forwarded these files to the medical board. His license will be suspended by morning. Garrett was hyperventilating, struggling against the security guards. Vivian, please. You're ruining my life. You can't do this over one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, holding up my right hand. The bright lights of the chandelier caught the ugly, jagged scar across my skin. You shoved me into a glass vanity, severed my tendon, and left me bleeding on the floor so you could take her to get a band-aid for a paper cut. You laughed while she drew dead eyes over my face in our daughter's baby book. You are a parasite, Garrett. I looked at Donald and Patricia, who were staring at their son in horror, the reality of their golden boy crumbling before their eyes. And you too, I said to his parents. You knew about the affair. You covered for him. So you can forget about ever seeing Sophie again. If you come within 100 yards of my daughter, I will use my frankly obscene amount of wealth to drown you in so much litigation you'll lose your house. I picked up my clutch and stepped back from the table. The destruction in the room was complete. It was a beautiful, devastating crater. The check is covered, I told Dr. Eris politely. Enjoy the steak. As I walked out of the private dining room, the sounds of chaos erupted behind me. Patricia was screaming at Scarlett. Dr. Eris was shouting at Garrett that he was fired. Garrett was sobbing, begging anyone, to listen to him. I pushed open the doors of the restaurant and stepped out into the cool night air. 2 police cruisers were pulling up to the curb, their red and blue lights flashing against the brick facade. The officers brushed past me, heading inside. Across the street, leaning against the hood of my car, was Ethan. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. When he saw me, a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. I walked over to him, taking the coffee with my fully functioning right hand. The warmth of the cup seeped into my skin, chasing away the last lingering chill of my dead marriage. How did it go? Ethan asked, his eyes dancing with amusement. Clinical, I replied, taking a sip. Clean margins. No chance of recurrence. Ethan chuckled, opening the passenger door for me. Let's go home, Dr. Vivian. Sophie's waiting. I slipped into the car, glancing in the rearview mirror one last time to see Garrett being dragged out of the restaurant in handcuffs, weeping like a child, while Scarlett screamed at the officers. I turned away, the corner of my mouth twitching upward. I made her body. I made his career. And tonight, I unmade them both. I drank my coffee, and for the first time in months, I felt perfectly, blissfully light.